earlier today, I introduced a piece of legislation called the Access to Capital for Job Creators Act. This bill would make it easier for small businesses to better access capital in order to expand and create jobs. If you think about the things that the job creators around the country want and need in order for them to get that capital off the sidelines, to get out of cash and to get invested again and get that money back into our economy and back into creating jobs, they want to see a government that lives within its means. They want to see a government that doesn't spend money it doesn't have. And so we've got to be serious about cutting spending here at the federal level and getting back to more of a historic norm when it comes to the cost of our government as a percentage of our entire economy. Historically, for the past 40 years, that's run in the 20 to 21% range. That's what we spend on the federal government as a percentage of our entire GDP. Now, it's up in the 24 to 25% range. That means that the federal government as a percentage of our entire economy is growing relative to our private economy. We want to see the private economy grow and expand, and the federal economy, Mr. President, get smaller. Our job creators also want to see our tax code reformed in a way that is simple, clear, and fair, and that provides the right types of incentives for them to create jobs and doesn't drive investment overseas and create jobs there as opposed to creating those jobs right here at home. And so if we can get tax reform that lowers rates on individuals and businesses and broadens the tax base in this country, I think you will see an explosion of economic growth, which is ultimately the best solution that we can possibly have to all the challenges, fiscal and economic challenges that our country faces. Our job creators want smart, common sense regulations, not more and more regulation for regulation's sake, which is, I think, what we see a lot today. We've seen bill after bill have passed the House of Representatives that is designed to sort of roll back the overregulation, the regulatory overreach that we've seen from this administration. Many of those bills have come over here to the Senate where they have died, unfortunately. But we need to be looking at these things in a way that will, again, lower the impediments, lower the barriers, lower the hurdles to job creation in this country. And that's why I think smart, common sense regulation is the way to go, and to get away from the regulatory overreach that we're seeing all too much of today. We need affordable energy policies, opening up access to the vast resources that we have in this country. We need to open up markets around the world and look at ways that we can make our small businesses, create more opportunities for them to export their products to other places around the world. But the legislation that I introduced today, Mr. President, addresses yet another issue, which I think small businesses have talked about, and that is access to capital. And we need to better address the need for capital in order to create jobs and expand our economy. Last week, the House of Representatives passed this very bill. It was introduced by Representative Kevin McCarthy, and on a near unanimous vote in the House of Representatives of 413 to 11, they passed this legislation and sent it this direction. This bill would allow small businesses to better attract capital from accredited investors nationwide under Rule 506 of Regulation D of the Securities Act of 1933 by removing the general solicitation provision. Now, that sounds like a lot of Washington speak, and it is. But the very simple translation of that, Mr. President, is this will make it easier for small businesses to access the much-needed capital they need to expand and grow their businesses. This provision is a roadblock in its current form for small businesses that are looking to obtain needed capital because it requires investors to have a pre-existing relationship with an issuer or intermediary before the potential investor can be notified that unregistered securities are available for sale. So if you got a small business that's looking for investors, unless they have a pre-existing relationship with that investor, they can't, there's no way for them to get the message out that they are looking for capital to those with whom they don't have that kind of a relationship already in place. The provision as it currently exists severely hampers the ability for small businesses to obtain needed capital from investors, and as a result, many businesses are limited to only the universe of investors with which they clearly have these pre-existing relationships. This legislation would remove that solicitation prohibition and allow businesses to attract capital from accredited investors nationwide. Mr. President, with unemployment at 9%, we need to pass legislation that will enable our job creators to expand and to create jobs. As I said, this bill passed with overwhelming bipartisan support in the House of Representatives. I would hope that we can do the same thing here in the United States Senate and address this very fundamental need among our businesses, our small businesses in this country, to get access to much-needed capital to expand their businesses. That, along with using a common-sense approach to regulation, an approach that gets away from this massive 61,000 pages of new regulations that we've seen issued since this administration took office, to tax reform that is simple, that is clear, that is fair, that provides incentives to keep jobs here at home as opposed to shipping them overseas, affordable energy policies, reducing government spending, improving export opportunities for our small businesses. Those are the types of policies that our job creators have said that they need. We're going to have an opportunity to vote on the rollback of this net neutrality regulation and on some other regulations tomorrow that are making it more difficult, more costly for our businesses, our small businesses, to create jobs in this country. I hope that we will see strong bipartisan support in both with respect to the regulation, the disapproval regulation, or disapproval resolution, I should say, that we're going to be voting on net neutrality, as well as the one on cross-state air permitting. So those are both things that I think will do a lot to make it less expensive for small businesses in this country to create jobs. And I would hope as well that we will look at other opportunities in the form of the legislation introduced by Senator McCain, Senator Portman, and others that has a whole series of the things that I just mentioned, all of which will create jobs and grow our economy, make this country more prosperous and stronger, and put us on a more sound economic and fiscal footing as we head into the days ahead. Mr. President, I yield the floor.